Hey guys, and welcome to our first Mythic guide. Now this guide will go over Black Rook Hold. Now as always with the trash, don't stand in any fire, tank them facing away from the group. Here we have the first boss. Now, just like normal and heroic mode, this boss has his regular moves. The first one you need to watch out for is Swirling Scythe. He will throw a scythe on the ground that will swirl around, do damage, and do a knockback ability. So if you're ranged or healer, just stay away from that. Next one is Soul Echoes, which he also has in normal and heroic mode. What he will do is he will debuff someone and they will drop illusions on the ground that explode. Now what's different in Mythic mode is that these explosions will cause anyone inside of them to be feared for 5 seconds, which means that you can get cleaved to death. Now the cleave I'm talking about, of course, is Reap Soul, which we see here, and that will one-shot you in Mythic mode. The only other thing to know is when he gets to 50%, he does do this right here, Call Souls. So what happens is he summons a bunch of restless souls which spawn from the edges of the arena, and each soul that gets to him will cause an increase in damage that he does. He's channeling a big burst spell that does 300,000 damage, plus, depending on how many spirits get to him, it can be lethal for anyone. So you see we do kill the adds, however, no one really prepares for the soul burst, no one uses mitigation, and that kills the whole team. Now, fortunately, we are going to be able to down this boss, but you do want to pop your mitigation ability, whatever it is that you have, some sort of defensive cooldown, as soon as that burst is being cast. Here we do have the scythe being thrown, Reap Souls are still going up. Everything from here on out for the rest of the fight is still standard. The biggest differences come with the illusions fearing people, and they also come with that 50% cast. That does happen in heroic mode, it just does more damage in Mythic. Now what's interesting about this is at 10% he does do a Reap Soul, takes my healer down, but actually as a tank, if you can avoid a lot of this damage, you can take this boss down pretty easily by yourself. Or not necessarily pretty easily, but you can take this boss down by yourself. So you'll see here, just avoid the big cleave, avoid the scythes on the ground, and place your illusions a little bit spaced out. You don't want to get hit by them. And that's all there is to this boss. Pop a defensive cooldown with that burst at 50%, or you will go down. Alright, here we have the world boss, the Archmage. Now basically with him is very simple, don't stand in any of the fires. He'll do an arcane ability that lays down this purple pathing on the ground, don't stand in it. Besides that, pretty straightforward fight. Here you see what I'm talking about. You can jump over this to avoid the damage. So when it does go at your feet, jump over it, and that's really all there is to this guy. The next boss. The biggest difference between normal mode and heroic and mythic is that he'll just spawn an additional add in phase 2. So here you see he does throw his glaive between people. They still need to spread out as to not take that much damage cleaving to each other. Fell Rush is still targeted on 3 people, leaves a path on the ground. Vengeful Shear will hit harder than normal, so you do need to gear up for that, or pop some bigger defensive cooldowns and be more aware of that. You can see here I do get pretty low pretty often. Another Brutal Glaive, spread out. Here we have phase 2, I-beams and an ad. Now you will get 2 ads. You have one ad that's a caster, the Arcanist, and that's who you want to focus on. Now unfortunately here, since the I-beams are on me, there's not much I can do to actively tank and try to DPS and try to spread out the beams at the same time. But focus on the Arcanist. The spell that the Arcanist casts will leave a debuff on you that'll make his next spell hit harder and harder and harder, and that can end up one-shotting you over time. So you do want to DPS that immediately. Then get the other ad and then go back to the boss. Here comes a glaive, make sure you're spread out. This boss does have some changes. Now you see here Hateful Gaze. He will stare at someone, charge at them, and do massive amounts of damage to them, but will also leave them with a debuff that lasts 1 minute, and next time he rushes that person, they will take 300% increased damage, which means that they will be one shot by it next time. So what you need to do is, after he targets the one person, other people need to start standing in front of him and take this charge on themselves. So you see here, we had our priest take it and then the hunter take it. Now, just like normal mode and heroic mode, we have these lines of vomit coming across the whole thing. Don't stand in them. They hurt a lot, and they will become overbearing at a certain point. Here we had another charge which did not get blocked correctly, so our DPSer did go down. Now, our original person that got charged is still the target and still has the debuff, so you'll see here that I take it upon myself to just run in front and take a debuff. However, with 3 DPS and 1 healer, 4 people is enough to keep the rotation going. You do have the added incentive of 5 people just in case one of the rotations gets messed up or one person goes down. Here goes another charge on a target that did not have the debuff. However, someone else does go down to the vomit because they did stand in it for a little bit. So you see here behind me, there is vomit all over the floor. You really want to try to spread out on that, because as time goes on, it becomes more and more overwhelming. And you do see here that we do take the boss down. These are not the cleanest takedowns of these bosses by any means, but you have to keep in mind that this is all LFG. Now here we have the final boss. The biggest change in Mythic mode is that the Guile has a bigger area during phase 1, and also he will put a swarm of insects on someone, and that swarm can stun the target as well as does massive damage, so it needs to be prioritized. So once again, phase 1 is pretty straightforward. Don't stand in the purple stuff. Here we have phase 2. Just like the other phase 2, he'll do a Shadow Bolt volley, which does huge damage. You need to heal through that. He will also summon clouds that will put people to sleep, and then do the Guile ability, which rotates counterclockwise to the left and just starts zapping people away. Now you need to avoid that by going in the outer ring and avoiding the clouds at the same time. You see here what is on our healer, the swarm. That does massive damage and has the chance of stunning the person who it's targeting. Now, combine a stun with this Guile ability, that person can get one shot very easily. So here we have the Guile. You see it is a wider range than before. Avoid the clouds that make you go to sleep. And that's it for this boss. Nothing too terrible, just make sure you kill that swarm. Here we have another swarm. Switch to it. And then we have another swarm. We need to DPS that down again. Now one thing that happened there is I did take one hit because I was in the very back end of that and I was going to be receiving a lot more of those. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video.